Wow, that was amazing. I felt like something shifted.
Meet Scott Thomas, influencer, entrepreneur, and 1/3 of the Thomas brothers.
When I look good and feel good, that's when I get the best out of life. The depiction of health actually isn't healthy. I am weirdly really confident, but also quite insecure.
Do you use filters?
Ooh, I just wanted to have a set of abs and look good. Over the last few years, I put so much work into spending time on my own. But what I've realised is, sobriety, big one. I always knew I had a bit of an issue with alcohol. Something happened to me when I drank. The Scotty Special, my alter ego, was a lunatic. I could get arrested for being drunk and disorderly. I'd wake up the next day in tears. You're growing all the time. It's only through a lot of reflection now I realised that.
Do you think vanity feeds the ego, or do you think it's necessary to have to remind you of your self-worth? Welcome back to another episode of Thinking Deeper. Today I have in the studio Scott Thomas, influencer and CEO of the social PR agency. In his own words, I'm gassed to have him in the studio. Welcome, Scott.
Wow. That was amazing.
Was that your first ever experience?
I feel like I've done is it quite similar to a sound bath?
Like a gong bath, but that
was just weird because I was like ready for it. Sometimes these things you've got to be like in the right headspace, and I was just like, I'm gonna close my eyes and go with this. And it was like did something to my body. Do you know what I mean? It sent like a tingle around my body. Do you know what I mean?
Nice.
My senses.
Yeah.
So what do I do?
It is about aligning energies. So it's about opening the space because we're sharing a space together. And then it's about being open and honest. So having a singing bowl with the words in it just charges the conversation.
I love it. It felt like that. It felt like something shifted.
Oh, lovely.
But in a good way.
Wow.
And I relaxed.
I'm excited.
Okay. Do I need to
So just for any viewers that are joining us for the first time on the podcast, I have obviously the incredible Scott Thomas here with me. In his own words, I am gassed to have him in the studio.
Yes, gassed up.
For those of you that don't know who he is, which would be really surprising for me, but obviously influencer, he's been on Love Island and he is now the CEO of the social PR agency. So, and you're doing loads of stuff actually. That's just, I've not
and
really...
1/3 of the Thomas bros.
Yeah, and 1/3 of the Thomas.
The tall one.
That's
we look like the in-betweeners.
Well, you're a
Ross.
twin, actually, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a twin, but Adam and Ryan look more like twins, and I'm like the tall one, and Ryan's the short one, and Adam's the middle one. So yeah, we're just the three Thomas bros.
I love how you gave yourself the best description there, and then everybody else
it's
is
just the way
like,
it is. Ryan
short. Sorry, Ryan.
He won't like that.
No, he won't.
He won't like that.
So I've placed some words in the bowl.
Yeah.
This will determine the topic of our conversation today.
Okay.
So if you want to pick the first one, and then we'll start.
I'm going to go for... 1 second. Wow, I made a meal of this already. Wait. Come on, give me something good. Body positivity.
Body positivity.
Wow, that's very interesting.
For you, if we place that down there. So obviously I've followed you for years, actually. It's took me nearly 3 years to get you on the podcast.
Wow.
Just so you know.
Did you manifest it?
I did.
I love that.
It was a lot slower with you, though, than it was with Usain Bolt. Yeah.
Right. I know. Well,
obviously didn't do it quite right.
Do you know what I mean? I'm a little bit more big time. No, I'm joking.
Of course.
I can't believe you had Usain Bolt on. That's amazing. That's amazing.
He was amazing as well, to be fair.
Was he?
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Incredible. Like in terms of just discipline and like all the stories that he shared actually made him cry.
Wow. Okay. Got to live up to that then, have I?
No. You are quite an emotional person though.
No,
so
I am.
You never know.
I am.
We never know, peeps. Anyway, if you are joining us for the first time, please hit the subscribe button. It's really important that we get you to just see these stories, hear these stories, and be able to become the best versions of yourselves, which is what this whole podcast is about, with unbelievable guests like Scott. And you've just picked out Body Positivity from our wonderful singing bowl there, who acts as a producer for me on my show. Your journey has been incredible, by the way. Like I've been watching it, following it for some time now. And you've always seemed to have had a real focus on body positivity and how you have portrayed yourself. Where does that come from?
I think for me, like when I look good and feel good, that's when I get the best out of life. And I've always been really for a long time into my training, eating the right foods. Because I think in a weird way, right, like especially when I've gone through such a transition in my life with sobriety and self-development, personal growth, if you want to put a message across sometimes, especially in the world that we live in, it's almost like you need to have like tangible results, and physical results that people can see and be inspired by.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first went on my journey of sobriety, I was like, right, step one, I want to get in the best shape of my life. Because I thought if I'm going to share my message, I need people to see that it's actually physically working as well as like internally. So, looking good and feeling good. Don't get me wrong, like now it's shifted. Back then I just wanted to have a set of abs and look good.
There was a shallow element to that, wasn't
100%.
it? And I think that's what I want to get to. I want people to connect with that, because I think we all go through that journey. And I feel like as time is going on and we've got social media and the fact that there's accessibility to people so easily, I feel like that shallow part of it is still on a lot of people's beginning part of the journeys. And then they get to where you are. But how difficult is that journey?
So basically, I just wanted to have a set of abs and look good. And I did Love Island in 2016. And I remember doing like a 3-month transformation before Love Island. And literally, I didn't train legs. I didn't eat any food, basically. I couldn't go out. I couldn't drink. I couldn't do anything. It was just like so restrictive. And I did get a set of abs, but I didn't feel good. And I just looked good for a picture. Whereas now I've been on a mad journey now where I've shifted it. It's like I want to do the right things every single day. I want to eat the right foods. I want to eat make sure I get a lot of whole foods in. I want to train. I want to move my body. I want to be mobile. I want to be able to stretch and everything else. And through doing those things and focusing on that, I managed to look good. So it's basically shifted now. It's the other way around. It's like through me doing the right things as a byproduct, I look good, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Because a lot of people, you see on Men's Health magazine and all these guys, and you think like it's weird how the depiction of health actually isn't healthy.
No.
Do you know what I mean? These guys who you see shredded, I've been shredded before, and you're knackered and your moods are really low. Yeah, you're unhappy. And so I think it's kind of really important for people to shift that now. And I think body positive is such an important topic.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Let's pick the next one.
Next one. Let's go. Sobriety. The big one.
So I know you're a huge advocate of this, and I know it's been going on for a number of years. Again, I really want to help people understand the challenge of staying sober. When did that journey start for you?
Oh, I feel like that journey's been going on for decades, if I'm honest. Because I always knew that I had a bit of an issue with alcohol. Something happened to me when I drank. It didn't really happen to other people. And I thought it was just me. And people used to say to me all the time, like, Scott, like, you're drinking too much or you're doing this. And it was like, sometimes I wouldn't drink for a month or even 6 weeks. But when I did drink, it was like an explosion. And I would change so much. Like the Scotty Special, my alter ego, was a lunatic.
I can't believe you named him.
No, I didn't name him. Everybody else did. It was like, it's Scotty Special coming out tonight. Because it was like, and as soon as they see the change, they go, oh, it's Scotty Special. And I know there's a lot of people who are quite similar to that. And do you know what? It's only through a lot of reflection now I realised that I used to beat myself up so much going like, and trying to moderate, trying to drink less and everything else. But sometimes I could drink the same as other people, but I would just completely change. And
what would change though when you say
I was just
what was different?
I was just really unfiltered,
obnoxious.
Yeah, and what I've realised now is, and I've clearly got ADHD. I've just been diagnosed with it, but I don't like to define myself too much with it. But I'm trying to understand myself a lot more. But my mind is constantly noisy. It's constantly overthinking, and I'm really struggling to be present a lot of the time. Hence why I come in here, put my phone down, and I'm just like having to get in the zone. And when I drank,
you've come in here like a tornado, by the way.
Have I? Yeah, maybe. But that's typical, yeah.
Yeah.
But imagine that with drink, and drugs, right? Yeah. So like, and I would basically just become like a Tasmanian devil. And I wasn't like aggressive or anything like that, but I was just 100 miles an hour. I'd be jumping and dancing on all the tables. I'd be getting chucked out my own nights. I'd be unfiltered. I'd say to you exactly what I felt like was on my mind, like, but just in a way that, not to be nasty, but that I thought was funny.
Yeah.
And it was funny to a certain extent, and it was a laugh for so many years. But as I got older and as I kept doing it, my behavior kind of spiraled even more so out of control. I could get arrested for being drunk and disorderly. I was just getting escorted out of work events, and it was just embarrassing. And it was so far removed from who I was. I'd wake up like the next day in tears, and people didn't really know that, because on the surface I was a Scotty Special. I was running the best nights in town. I was mixing with celebrities.
Everyone wanted to be with you, didn't they? They wanted to be your mate.
I was a life and soul for so long, but deep down I knew I wasn't reaching my potential. Like, I always knew it, because I was always like a straight A student at school. I was meant to be a lawyer, a barrister, and everything else. And even though I was making good money and living this life, I didn't feel fulfilled. And I think I couldn't, but at the same time, it's asking someone to stop drinking in the world that we live in. And it might be different.
Especially when you're around that circle as well, in the social scene all the time, aren't you?
Yeah, so I was drinking from the age of 13. Like, I remember finishing school, and on a Friday, we'd all go meet our mates, wait outside the local off-licence for someone to go in for a bottle of vodka and some Fanta. And I was drinking from the age of 13, so that's all I knew. So my confidence, how I met girls, how I dealt with stress, it was all from a very early age. That was my release. So the actual idea of going sober for me was like unfathomable. And
alien almost.
Yeah, really alien. And even now is like I'm going through it, and I glamorize sobriety in so many ways because I've grown so much as a person. But it's tough, because you're growing all the time and you're dealing with shit all the time and everything else. So I made the decision to go sober in 2020 after getting escorted out of a work event, and it was that. Listen, that was the final straw. But there have been so many moments and so many things where I woke up. When I say decades of going, I'm never doing this again. Waking up on a Monday, I'm never doing this again. This is like, but I couldn't break the cycle. I call it being trapped in the cycle. But I managed to break the cycle, and it's been the best thing I've ever done.
And for people that are going through that journey, because why is it so important now for you to talk about it? Because, you know, you're a motivational speaker around it. You've really kind of placed yourself out there.
Don't know why. I just always had the this like feeling in my stomach, this intuition that I needed to share this story, because I think no one was really talking about the struggles of alcohol from my perspective. Like, it was always like someone who'd been to rehab, or someone who'd like, do you know what I mean? Like, felt suicidal or something like that. Whereas with me, it was like, no, I had a problem with alcohol that I wasn't necessarily addicted, but it caused havoc in my life.
So it's a choice that you've made.
Thank you. Rather than it being like an addiction, it was like a choice that I've made to break out the cycle and fulfill my true potential. And there's a lot of people who want to do the same, but they can't fathom how to do it. And I even when I was struggling with alcohol, I'd film content and think, you know what, this message needs to be shared, even just from my friends and my family. Like, I feel like everybody no one was really talking about it from this perspective and going, wait a second, is there another way of like living life, especially lads culture? And like, lads, that's what I was brought up in. Like, is there another way? Like, do you have to drink all the time? Do you have to like celebrate through alcohol if you get a good job? If someone dies, everything was like, oh, let's have a drink. And it's weird now because the world's moving on, right? And there's a lot of more like awareness around this and everything else. But the generation I was brought up in, and the generations before me, that's all we knew.
Exactly. Do you think that it's been easier for you because there is also this almost a way of glamorizing sobriety? Like, you hear a lot of people talking about, I'm 100 days sober, like it's a celebration in itself. Do you think that it's been easier for you because this generation actually is a lot more health conscious, is all about becoming the best versions of themselves? And had you have tried to do this, let's say 15 years ago, would it have been as simple?
Well, to be honest, like, I feel like I'm talking like the last 4 years since I'm really proud of this. I feel like I was one of the people at the forefront of the sobriety message, because when I put this message out 4 years ago, nobody was doing it. Nobody was talking about it. It was a shock. Like, that's why people come up to me to this day, and it's the best feeling. Like, I'll be walking my dog and someone will come up to me and go, 2 years sober, or like, you've changed my life and I'm 3 months sober because of you. Or
how does that make you feel?
Like, I've got goosebumps. It's like the most amazing feeling. Like, and it's like, you know, just like lads who never would usually give someone the respect for that. And instead of being known for Scott from Love Island now, it's like, honestly, it's like sobriety and self-development, and it's the best feeling ever. But when I first put it out about 4 years ago, it was like, it caused a massive kind of reaction from people because they never expected. In fact, everybody knew it was going on, right? Because everybody talks about, everybody knows who's in that world, like of the come downs and the like the kind of crazy, chaotic life that we all live, but no one was put it out on social media. And
They didn't dare do it because it would be different.
And even on social media now, you'll see now like people are being even more authentic, more vulnerable. And at the time, I put that out there, and it felt really uncomfortable. But I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And now there's this wave of everybody is on this wave of being more vulnerable and open and honest, especially on social media, because people don't want the polished shit anymore. They want the realness. And I think I've been a massive part of that kind of movement of sobriety, and I'm really proud about that. And yeah, and definitely now the world is shifting. I think the youngsters are getting onto it. They're more about starting businesses, wellness, whereas when we were youngsters, it was like posting bottles and sparklers and like, do you know what I mean, nights out, where you don't see that anymore.
No, you don't.
Okay.
Let's pick the next word.
Next one. Vanity. Oh, so interesting that, you know. Because I get told a lot of the time of people who I know, they say, you do know that people think you love yourself. And you do know that, like people come up to my mates and say, oh, he loves himself, him. And I say, it's mad that people say that, because I was like, what gives them that impression? And I think it's obviously confidence, and also the position that I'm in with, like, and obviously posting stuff. And it's weird because I am weirdly really confident, but also quite insecure. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The way I walk is sometimes I go to the gym, David Lloyd, right? And sometimes I'm in the gym and I just getting around that gym like I'm just like a normal person, which I know I am. But at the same time is like, I forget, like when my friends tell me, they go, you do know a lot of those people in the gym think that you love yourself and everything else. Because I walk on the gym, I'm just doing my reps and I'm looking in the mirror like everybody else. But it's just like, it's weird how you can perceive someone in a certain way. But then my mate said this to me the other day. He said, when they say that, though, I say, have you met him? Have you actually met him? And that's the bit that I love. Like when someone meets me and go, all right, he's actually sound. Do you know what I mean? So
here's a question.
Yeah, go on.
Do you use filters on your
what?
stories?
It's so interesting that. So every now and then I'll use a Paris filter on a story. But I've just recently stopped doing it. Purely because of some of the work that people put out. I mean, it's just like, I think first of all, you can just see a filter from a mile off. But sometimes I have used the Paris filter on stories. But I've stopped doing it recently. I think it just comes down to the fact of like, I'm confident within myself. And again, I think there's some really positive stuff going on social media now where people are saying like,
you don't need filters.
You don't need filters. Own who you are. Natural confidence. Like people, again, it's
because I don't think it's a physical thing. I think people feel your confidence. They don't see it.
True.
So your insecurity is based around how you feel about yourself. And I think when you change that perspective on you, people automatically start to see your confidence.
100%. And I think the question I'm asking now at the minute, and this is, it only happened recently, because I've been talking about being confident in your own skin for a long time. And because I used to not be able to spend time on my own. I used to have to be around people all the time.
Yeah.
And then over the last few years, I put so much work into spending time on my own. And I love my own company now. But what I've realized is because I have my phone and my followers and everything else, I'm actually never on my own. Does that make sense? Because I'm constantly getting validation, external validation of people all the time. So recently I've been trying to spend time off my phone, and last week I didn't post for 3 days and I could see my mood going like hitting the floor.
Digital detox. What do you mean your mood was hitting the floor? What? Because
I didn't have external validation. Does that make sense?
Interesting.
But I didn't have external validation, but then I also had a lot of growth because I noticed something about myself. I went, right. You've got to be confident with that when you're not being fed loads of likes and follows and everything else. And it was like a big process for me now is trying to detach from my phone, which is really difficult because obviously I work on everything else, but more so detach from the validation I get from social media and find it within.
Yeah.
And
because everything is within.
Is it within? Yeah. And like you said, you can tell someone when they walk in a room that they are, like when I come in a room, and my brothers are all like this. It's like high energy, right? And high energy, like there's a level of confidence to it. But sometimes the most confident people are the quietest guys in the room. We don't need to make any noise or anything else. And confidence comes in different forms, right? And I don't think mine's not real confidence because you can throw me in a room with like a load of people and I know I can just be at ease and everything else. But put me on a date, with a girl, sober. I find that difficult, like that intimacy
Yeah.
kind of confidence. But I'm aware of stuff.
But
right?
I think is that not a level of you still needing to grow in that area?
Thank you.
Because you haven't quite had the opportunity yet to get to know yourself in a mindful way around a person that potentially could be your partner. Because not until you get to know who you are, do you then know what you want from a partner.
100%. And that's what's happened, like through years, decades of being drunk, Scotty Special, I didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
So, and I've Adam said to me the other day, do you not think you should know who you are by now? You've been doing this for a while. Like, and I went,
such an Adam thing to say.
And I went, Adam, I said, I was drinking for a decade. I wasn't like, do you know what I mean? Decades. And
so here's the thing that I would say to you on the vanity then, just based on what the guys in the gym have said to you, because my actual question for this was, do you think vanity feeds the ego, or do you think it's necessary to have to remind you of your self-worth?
That's what I mean. So I feel like even though those comments could make me think, oh, Scott, you know what? You should be a little bit more humble when you're walking, David. Like, you shouldn't just walk around like you, do you know what I mean? Like you think you're the man. But I walk around like that.
But is that not you people pleasing?
No, it's not even people pleasing. It's not about, I don't walk around trying to think I'm the man. But I do walk around with an energy of confidence because I feel like whatever you put out to the universe, you get back. So it's like, vanity for me is not like, if you talk to me, this is what I mean. If you met me, you'd say, oh, he's quite a humble guy. And like, do you know what I mean? And I know I'm humble. I know I am. But you might perceive my confidence as arrogance or vanity, when in actual fact, it's just the way that I'm putting out a message to myself and the world. Because if I do put it out there, then I feel like I can live up to it. And it's not a case of me, and by the way, I don't overstrut or anything like that. But what I mean is, I think sometimes naturally
pouting in the mirrors.
I just think sometimes
flexing your pecs.
I just think sometimes confidence in that sense can be taken the wrong way.
Yeah.
But as long as
but I think that's a reflection of their own perception of themselves. Nothing to do with you.
Thank you. Okay. Love. Oh. These are good.
So we know that you went on Love Island in
Yes.
2016. You were 27.
I was, yeah. Done your research. I like it.
Thanks. What was your definition of love then? What were you really looking for at that time?
Oh, I didn't even have a clue, if I'm honest. I mean, I've always been quite deep. Like, I've always loved the idea of love. I'm a real deep thinker. So I watched the film Notebook, and I love the film Notebook. And I think I've always had this idea in my head of like, when you say you love someone, you love someone. And I remember my first love, like when I was like 20, 21, like she broke my heart. It wasn't her fault. But I couldn't get over like the rejection, like for years. And I think because I'm quite an intense, deep person, like when I love quite deeply. So I think I love the idea of it, but I think there's also a part of me, and I've realized this recently about myself, that I've been aiming for perfection too much. Like I've been aiming for the Notebook.
In a physical way or?
Both. Probably more physical, if I'm honest. Like she's got to be lit. Yeah. No, in fact, just everything.
Aesthetically.
Just everything. She's got to basically fit into my idea of what I thought my dream wife would be. Mm. And I think that's what I'm trying to unpick now and unravel. And I think that's why I've been single for so long, because I struggle to there's two reasons why I think I've been single for so long. One is I've been aiming for perfection, which I think is wrong. And I've acknowledged that. And two, I've struggled to let someone into me because I wasn't fully comfortable with who I was. Whereas now
they would see it,
and they would see through that. Whereas now I'm at a place in my life where I do like who I am. I am proud of who I am. And therefore, I would be open to letting someone into that. But the Scotty Special would let people in and just push them away. Because
I think we don't need to talk about Scotty Special anymore.
There we go.
Because he doesn't really need to be
exactly
in your space.
Yes.
Does he?
I like that. I like it.
He's still living on, really.
Yeah.
And that could be part of your challenge on your sobriety.
Yeah, I reckon so.
Because if you talk about him, like that narrative runs in your life. And then if it does, he's still there.
Oh.
And the more he's still there, the more you're reminded of the fact that Scotty Special still exists. When actually you don't want him to.
So I asked, this is a good question because I'll ask you this. If I want to inspire people and show people there's a different way, I'm very aware that I'm almost making sobriety, self-development stuff part of my identity now, right? Because that's what I want to do. I want to inspire people. But you're right. If that becomes part of my identity too much, then how can I ever leave that life behind? Do you know what I mean?
But that energy is constantly being attracted into your life as well. Because that's the narrative that you're speaking. So,
but if I'm talking about it in the past though, like I'm talking about,
but he's still there, isn't he? It means he's consciously, you're still thinking about him.
No, I get that.
And that's where your challenge will be.
But I'm talking about him in the context of showing people the transition and transformation. But I get what you mean. It's about me going, that's not me anymore. I get what you're saying. So I can still talk about him, but not identify with him.
You have to love him for what he's taught you and where he's brought you to now. And then you've got to leave him.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Right, okay. Influencer.
So just before we hit the influencer, we're kind of, I think, halfway into the podcast. Yeah. Probably a little bit further into the podcast. At this point, we have a curveball question and you've got to be really quick in answering it. And it's sponsored by Imp and Maker. And it's, what's your biggest mistake in life that you could share in business that you recovered from?
Not understanding my numbers enough. And it sounds so boring, but it's so important. And what I did is like, I basically brought people in. So all the business that I've been involved with, I've always said, like, even when I started doing the nights years ago, Scott Special from Control Club, he was running the till, and the operations, and I was bringing all the people in and being the party host and everything else, and it worked really well. But I had a great relationship with Scott. He's like family now, so I trusted him, and he would pay. I never once cashed up in the whole nearly decade of doing the parties. Just trusted him. He gave me my money, and that was fine. And that's great when you've got like a real loyal partner. But I think sometimes in businesses, it's like, I've just basically said, right, you're doing that and I'm doing this. I don't care what's going on over there. Let me just basically, I don't know, whether it's with Food Thoughts, let me bring the members in, let me do the marketing. I'll just do this and then you do that. Whereas I realize as a business owner, you have to have an overview of everything that's going on in your business. You don't have to get involved in everything, but you can't just abdicate and go, like, you just tell me what's going on. Pay
the
me
awareness has got to be there. And the trust, actually. Didn't the guy from Gymshark say to you, like, the biggest lesson he ever learned was that
he said integrity.
He said integrity. Trusting your team. And
yeah, so if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And then that goes down all the way down the chain, he said.
And all the way up as well.
That's right. So yeah, I think just basically having an understanding of all the different components and not going, well, this is just my area. It's just about understanding everything from a helicopter point of view.
Amazing. We have one more left.
Okay. Did we not talk about the influencer though? Did we?
No, we didn't. But we covered it.
Okay.
So this we'll finish on inspiration. You see how the universe brings everything into a conclusion.
I love it. Inspiration.
So I'm going to read something here.
Okay.
Really quickly. Scott lights up the room with his good intentions. He's a model example of someone who has reinvented himself from the ground up to produce a fully conscious version of himself. He reaches out a great deal, and it's my job to pull him into his center. Who do you think said that?
I don't know. It was amazing, though. It's my job to pull him into his center. It's not my therapist, is it? Gareth? Yeah. Is it? Wow. That's the only person who can pull me into my centre. That's amazing. How did you get that? Where's that come from?
Funnily enough, which is why I always believe everything happens for a reason. Gareth Palmer was my lecturer at uni.
No way. Someone else told me this.
Decades ago.
Adam Cole, do you know the radio? Do you know Adam Cole?
Yeah.
He said he was his lecturer as well.
Yeah.
That's mad.
So when I said to you, I've been trying to get you on this podcast for years, he actually told me that that you were his client, but you talked about it anyway. That's how I found out. And then I reached out to him to say, I've got to try and get Scott on my podcast. And here we are.
Wow, it's amazing. He's a next level guy, and I've been seeing him for about 8 years now. Wow. It's funny because when I go and see Gareth now, it's like I feel like I'm his therapist.
I love that.
So when you're awake and conscious, it's such a good way to describe it. When you're awake and conscious, I felt like I was asleep for so many years.
Yeah.
And I think that's just where I'm at. And that's the only problem though. Like being awake and conscious is like exhausting.
It is exhausting. But I think when you get to a stage where you are mindful and you are living in the moment and really present, everything changes. And I guarantee your ADHD will change as well based on that.
Yeah, I think it's more about just being kind to myself. Like
that whole self-worth, what Roxy talks about basically.
Yeah.
If you don't have the self-worth, then you're never going to attract all the things that you think you deserve.
And I thought I had self-worth, but what I've realized is take away my external validation, which is so embedded into my everyday life, that wasn't as strong as I thought it was. And
do you think that was just on this, actually, do you think that was based around the fact that you had two brothers that were in the limelight, getting attention all the time? Do you think there was an element of you that kind of wanted some of that as well?
100%. But you've got to remember, my dad was a soul singer as well when I was a kid.
I loved your dad.
Yeah, my dad was a soul singer, and he was like, I remember as a kid looking up at him like he was like a rock star. He used to pick us up from school in this white stretch limo, and then I'd see him perform and he'd get everybody up, and I was like, wow, like we worshipped our dad. And then my brothers went into that. So it's all throughout our lives, like we've been performers, so to speak. And I think there's always been an element of me that is that person as well. But because I was the smart one, the intelligent one, I went to private school and I went down the street, but I was never going to be a lawyer. Like, just because I was smart, I was going to be a lawyer. Like, whereas now I'm going, oh, wait a second. Like, I'm the happiest when we talk about influencing now. Like, I know influencer has kind of a little bit of a bad rep, but I actually feel proud that I'm being an influence of personal growth, self-development. And I loved creating content around that and inspiring people. And yes, I get external validation from it, which is something that I don't want to rely on. But then that is part of my personality. And also being a performer.
Your tribe also, you're connecting. Yeah. So your tribe are recharging your thoughts, and you can also see that there are people out there. It's a bit like me with the podcast. You know, if I don't get that feedback from the people that I am doing this for, that I'm trying to take on this journey with me, it's a moot point.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's not validation. That's just, I feel the connection with people, and I can see that what I'm putting out there is what they want as well. And I'm just a very small part of their journey.
Yeah, see, that's what you've got to be mindful of when you're being conscious and everything. Because sometimes I overanalyze my behavior to the point of actually, like, I sometimes like tear myself apart with it. Does that make sense? Like, then what you just said is like, I'm going, oh, I just rely on external validation. Whereas I'm going, wait a second, no, Scott. Like, like you said, there's another way to look at that. Oh, you need a bit of connection and a bit of like reassurance that you do you know what I mean? So it's like, that's the bit that I'm kind of unpicking and unraveling and just trying to understand about myself, because like I said before, I am a deep thinker, but I'm also just enjoying the growth. And this week, like the weekend, I had a bit of a weird weekend, and I was like, oh shit, I'm growing again. Like, a few things happened, like I was growing, and the last few days I've just been moving in alignment, like where I've been writing down on my to-do list to ring this person who rang me. It happened twice. And then I was like, last night before bed, I was like, I need something positive to listen to before bed. And then as soon as I went on YouTube, like Joe Dispenza was like, what's yours is already on its way. Something that someone said to me recently.
Synchronicities.
Yeah. And I was just like, it's mad.
Honestly, I could sit and talk to you all day. It would be a really good one, wouldn't it, to carry on?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I genuinely am grateful for being here and holding this space with me. It's been amazing. Thank you for being so honest, for being so open. I'm convinced you are all going to love this. So please hit the like button, comment, subscribe, share, do all those things so we can get this kind of content out to as many people and help everybody on their journey. Scott, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And what a great podcast. I love the structure. I love the ideas. I love it. It's like really good, man.
Thank you so much.
These are good topics as well.